So let's get on to the main event. As I say, I have been sort of debating this webinar for the last few months as to whether to do it, but it's increasingly obvious to me that people want to work more with estate agents, but don't necessarily know how to. I know from my own experience as being an agent or going into estate agencies to even promote UK Homes Network, it can feel really, really intimidating. They're all sat there, they're all staring at you the moment you walk in, and the first thing that they do is palm you off by getting you to write your details or email in, and the conversation never really goes much further than that. So, as an ex-estate agent, I wanted to share with you basically how estate agencies work, why you might be getting that bit of a standoff reaction, and how you can build up a sustainable relationship with estate agents to ensure that you're getting a regular deal pipeline through. And of course, they're the ones that hold all the keys, all the answers to all the deals that are coming to market. So we're going to start with um, basically a focus for tonight, which is the overwhelming majority of estate agents don't network, but they do hold the keys to the local market. So what we mean by that is that if you go to networking events up and down the country, it's very rare that you will see a number of estate agents in the room. Typically, they don't network as much as the rest of us, which means that you do have to go to them on their terms. So you do have to go and see them down on the high street, and go and meet them in person at where they are, whether that's a viewing, whether that's a valuation, or actually going into their shop. But if you are able to go in and you are able to connect with them, then as I say, they hold all the keys to the market and can keep you sustained with regular deals coming through. Now, tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of have a recap with you guys. It might be the first time that you're joining a webinar, and certainly I don't tend to talk too much about my estate agency experience, but I'm going to share with you it tonight, and give you a bit of context as to why I'm the person doing this webinar. I'm also going to sort of recap on how you're currently finding deals, the sort of traditional model for looking at deals and trying to find projects wherever you are based around the country. Um, I'm really going to explore how estate agencies work because I think it's really important that you understand not just the hierarchy of an estate agency, but the different type of business models that exist within estate agency. Because you'll notice if you do go in to your local branch just off the high street, depending on the business model of the estate agency itself, that might determine whether you're wasting your time with those estate agents. And I'll get a little bit into that as the presentation goes on. I'm also going to discuss your agent avatar. So, this is the person that you should be ideally targeting to build that relationship with when you go in to the estate agents. Now, they do have different jobs, different roles, different positions within the estate agency, and each one will lend itself differently to what you're trying to get out. We're going to talk about building a proper relationship with them. And we're also going to talk about winning hearts and minds. As I say, they can be sometimes quite standoffish if you're just walking in off the street. So I'm going to share with you a few tips and tricks that I've actually received from property developers that still makes me think about them till this day. And certainly, if I did have properties coming to the market, they would be the first people that I think of. And then I'd love to have your questions. So if you've got any questions during the presentation, do please put them in the chat, and um, we'll try and get round to those at the end. We've also had a question sent in from one of our members as well. So we will head that off towards the end. Now, look at that fine specimen. Uh, Little did he know that if he just tied his top button up and did his tie up properly, he probably would have listed a lot more properties. So yes, that was my episode on Homes Under the Hammer. I was an estate agent for many years I basically started off as a sales negotiator. I literally fell into a state agency completely by accident. I was looking for a job at the time, and there was a job advertised in the local newspaper for an estate agency, and a family member recommended that I go and have a chat with them. And then before I knew it, I was in hook, line, and sinker, and yeah, absolutely loved it. Going out, doing viewings, negotiating on offers, understanding how properties actually work, and also how the different types of buyers work, whether that's, your first time buyers, whether it's people looking for a bungalow because they're retiring. And then later on in my career, really understanding the sort of more professional market, which is your landlords, your property investors, and developers. And that's where I came across my first networking meeting. I went along to the local pin in Coventry. Back then, there was about 120 people in the room. It's what I call the HMO boom of Coventry, and everyone was in Coventry because it was such an opportunity to buy HMOs. Obviously, that opportunity is not as thriving as it is now. But back then, yeah, it was people coming up from London, down from Manchester, and all investing in Coventry at the time. And I was there going along in my estate agency uniform to try and bring those guys to bring their properties either to market or to find them deals or potentially have their properties in our portfolio. I absolutely loved my estate agency career, but decided that it was time to move on. As you'll understand, once we get into the hierarchy of estate agency, there's a certain ceiling or a certain cap for estate agents. You either go on to own your own estate agency, or you just continue in the position you're in unless you work for a corporate and you can sort of climb the ladder, which is where I retrained in digital marketing and ended up working for some prop tech platforms, but also a major house builder. You've probably all heard of McCarthy and Stone, where they did things a little bit differently to other developers, I believe, in the sense that McCarthy and Stone would actually bring out every single department to a site before they were looking to buy it. So me as a marketing person would come out to a site visit to understand where the hoarding's going to go, how how the site would be sold once it's built or even off plan based on the local amenities, uh, customer research, how what was the average age in the area, was there bus stops locally, all that sort of stuff. So you really got to interact with the construction managers and the land managers, and it was quite a fascinating experience to be that involved in the process. And then obviously working for the prop tech platforms, it was quite interesting to see how uh, developers were actually sourcing their sites through Landtech, Nimbus Maps, all those kinds of platforms. Now, I'm going to go into the status quo, if you like. So, if this sounds like you at home, please do drop a message in the chat. Just say, yes, this is what you're currently doing. So, the traditional model is that you will start out in property development or property investing. You will define your strategy. So, whether that's flips, BRRs, um, social housing, supported living, commercial to resi, as someone put in the chat earlier. And then once you found your strategy and you've done a bit of education around it, maybe you've done some courses, maybe you've done some online, you will then go out and start finding sites. The tr the traditional way of doing this is either you will go via some of the prop tech platforms like Searchland, or you'll look at online, so Rightmove, um, and then you'll go and have a drive by. So you'll either get out in your car, you'll go and have a look at what sort of vacant properties are available, vacant sites, and you may also use a deal sourcer. And I know we've got a few of you tonight. And basically, what will happen is from that moment on, you will then start sending out direct to vendor letters, where you'll basically send out letters to the vendor, to the person that owns that property, in the hope that they will either bring it to market or they will do a deal with you. And That's sort of the traditional model. If that sounds like you guys, please do put a comment in the chat. If you do use anything else, let us know. But the point being is that estate agents are doing that day in and day out. They are doing your job for you continuously. Yeah, Fran says that that's you. Um, they are already doing the direct to vendor letters. They are already driving around looking at what properties could be potentially coming to market. And they are already using the online platforms. Not many people know this, but actually, Rightmove bought a company called um, Blue Beyond or something like that a few years ago. It was back in 2016. And what they'd done is basically created an algorithm of when they could determine when someone was going to move by. So what they would be able to do is take data such as how many people lived in the house, how many bedrooms were in the house, were the children or the parents looking like they were about to have kids based on their average age and whether there was children already in the home, how close they were to the local school, what Ofsted report that local school had, and then they would take all these data points and it would give them a score based on how likely they were to move. And then some estate agents that were spending the most amount of money would have access to that algorithm and it would present them with the houses to send out those direct to vendor letters. So absolutely crazy stuff that was going on in the background. Um, and that's the access that estate agents get that you might not necessarily have. Yes, so Pauline does all that, and also Property Filter. Yeah, Property Filter, Property Market Intel, Property Data. There's some incredible platforms out there, and they're currently showing you what's on the market. Whereas the estate agents are the ones that are building the relationships with those that are potentially coming to market. If you think about it in your daily life, if you are looking to if you are looking to move house, the first person you'd phone is the estate agent to get a valuation to see what you're dealing with, how much it's going to be worth, and whether it's worth your time actually moving, because that will determine the rest of your budget. Now, most people think estate agents are there to sell properties, and um, that might be true, but estate agents' motivations actually lie somewhere else. Now, it might sound like I'm going to be slagging off estate agents tonight, and that's absolutely not the case. I really, really sympathize with estate agents, and they have a very difficult job. But it's really important that you guys understand the psychology of an estate agent so that when you do approach them to work with you, you know what their motivations are and how you can get them on side to deal with you. So, estate agency, yes, in principle, is there to sell properties, but they and actually for people to buy those properties. But the estate agent's main focus is to find sellers to bring those properties to market, which is exactly what you guys are doing on a daily basis. The reason that they are so focused on bringing those properties to market is because we live in a world where it's seen that if you put it on Rightmove, Zoopla, prime location, on the market.com, it's got some nice photos, a well-written property description, and it's priced correctly, then the property should sell itself. And when you have an estate agent out, they normally, the first thing that they say is that they will put it on Rightmove. And that's the given, because once it's on Rightmove, it gets maximum exposure. And that's actually reflected in Rightmove's figures. So they've actually captured 80% of the market of all consumers on property portals just in 2024. So that's 80% of all people looking to buy property use Rightmove. Zoopla also reported to an average time to sell it in 2025, so just last year, which was 38 days. Now it's only gone up by 3 days in 2024. Um, but if you imagine that houses are only taking just over a month to sell once they actually hit platforms, there's not a lot for estate agents to do in terms of actually trying to sell that property. The bulk of the estate agency work is trying to get that property onto market. And then it is once the offer is agreed, and I know there'll be a few cringes or a few flashes of PTSD at home when you think about the property transaction. Their job is to basically make sure that once that offer's agreed, it then goes through to completion. That's where they make the bulk of their money. And Rightmove's guidance says that the average time to sell from their platform in 2025 ranged from 59 to 77 days. And that's based on from being on the market to completion. And the time does vary based on the fact that the transaction now, if you think about the searches, is taking even longer. So, from an estate agent's perspective, we've already sort of looked at what you are doing on a daily basis, but they're regularly going out dropping leaflets through doors. Some estate agents who are a little bit more have a little bit more capital in the bank will actually pay someone to drop leaflets out. You've probably all received one since the new year, a leaflet come through your door from an estate agent asking if you'd be interested in selling. They also use direct to vendor letters. So Zoopla has quite an interesting platform. I don't know if it still works the same way, but basically we would spend probably at least 4 hours a day where we would be able to see all the properties listed on Zoopla, and then we would have their addresses. The only thing that was missing was their house number. So we would go on Google Street View or look at the EPCs to get the house number, and we would basically send out 100 letters a day to potential properties that were already on the market or that had fallen through, to try and bring them off the existing estate agent that they were on with and bring them on with ourselves. If you think that, you know, the amount of letters that you're sending out every month, that's a massive operation, particularly when you've got, you know, five or six estate agents on the high street, and they've got a team of 5 or 6 people all doing the same thing. There's also something called applicant calls. Now, it's quite a deceiving name, but actually, what it means is that um, they have a database of buyers, people that are looking to buy houses, and the sales negotiators in the office will be phoning those every single week to see if they're looking to buy. Now, that's not necessarily the case. They may start the call, and it's always great to open the call with, "What are you looking to buy?" But their main motivation for that call is either to bring that property to market if they've got a property to sell, or to refer them on to their mortgage advisor or their solicitors. There's also a saying in estate agency that boards breed boards. So um, you've all seen the estate agency boards going up every single street within your town. There's a real reason why estate agents push this, and it's not to try and sell your house quicker. It's because if you're one of your neighbors sees a board go out the front of your house, it's more than likely that they'll want to have that same estate agent come out and value their property, with the chance that it might go on the market. You've probably been down a street before where you've seen, you know, 4 or 5 houses all on the market with the same estate agent. And it all comes back to that saying that boards breed boards. So if you ever refuse a board, notice how the estate agent might feel a little bit aggrieved at the fact that you don't want one. And then they also use paid advertising. So you may have seen, this is a campaign we actually run. This isn't, that picture isn't a picture of the campaign that we did, but we actually put our estate agency logo on petrol pumps at the local Tesco's garage. And you've all driven past roundabouts that have got an estate agent advertising on there. Notice how it's not actually saying anything about the properties it's selling. It's just brand awareness for the estate agency, because you're the first one that they want to call when you're looking to have your property valued or looking to have it to bring to market. So I hope that kind of brings that to your mind, that the estate agents not necessarily bothered about whether you're going to buy the property. They're bothered about whether you're going to bring your property or properties that you own to market. So it gives you sort of a fresh perspective on when you're actually going into that estate agency office, and you can see them all sitting there, as to what it is that they actually want from you. And this is actually reflected in the business model of estate agency. So you've all walked in, you've all seen this. It's extremely intimidating. Um, you will normally have the first line of defense, which is known as the sales negotiators. So these are the guys that are basically ringing, taking offers, um, booking in viewings, and then going out and doing the viewings. And then behind them, you will have the sales valuer. They're called lots of different names in different estate agencies, listers, market appraisal manager, you name it, but they're all there to do the same job, which is basically book people in for valuations and actually go out, do the valuations, get them to sign the contract, and bring the property onto market. So if you look at the commission structure, the average fee in the country at the minute is 1% to 1.35%. So that's the fee that they bill the seller for completing on a house. Then of that 1% to 1.3%, the sales negotiator, if they sell that property, will receive 2 to 3% of that fee. Then if you look at the sales valuer, they will actually receive 5% for listing the property in the first place. So on a £300,000 house, and let's say that the fee is 1.25%, so that equals 3,750 pounds. The valuer will get 187%, £187 for being the person that brought that property to market versus the sales negotiator, which would only get 2 to 3% of the fee. So the whole business model is incentivized to actually make sure that they bring properties to market. And I mentioned that when you go into a local estate agent, it's very important that you understand how estate agents operate because initially you could be wasting your time if you don't understand the business model in which they're in. So you may have heard of the term, there's corporate estate agents, there's also independent estate agents, and there's hybrid. So corporate, what I would recommend is if you want to take a picture of this, please do. I can send you the slides. Those corporate estate agents, they are the four main corporate estate agents in the UK, and they all have subsidiary brands. So countrywide, their most famous subsidiary brand is Bairstow Eaves. Connells, you will recognize Connells, but they also own many other brands as well. They own Birchall Edwards, they own Dixon's, lots of different brands. Sequence, William H. Brown, and LSL own Reed's Rains, which used to be the Halifax back in the day. They bought it off them when building societies owned estate agencies. And they also own Your Move. So those corporate estate agents are huge entities. And I'm not going to get into any slander, but we've all probably watched the recent Panorama documentary about how those business models are set up. And they make more money from actually mortgage referrals than they do from selling the properties themselves. They also have huge land and new homes teams. So the idea of working with an independent property developer is not factored into their business model. They have way more incentive to sell to first time buyers or second time buyers and bringing those properties onto market from the standard residential market. If they are looking at, potentially working with a new build development or a large scale conversion, they will also have a new homes team that will be set up to do that. Now, if you look at the opposite side, on the right-hand side, we also have hybrid agents. So hybrid is mainly defined by the fact that they don't have a high street presence, but they also use technology to outweigh the fact that they don't have a high street presence. Now, I put Keller Williams in this bracket, and also you could factor in companies like EXP because they have a self-employed business model which has been brought over from the States, which has been massively successful. I think Purple Bricks were one of the first to bring it in, and I actually worked for Purple Bricks. And also Yopa adopted it as well. Those ones, There are, I know, a few independent. There are a few self-employed agents that work on behalf of Keller Williams, EXP, Purple Bricks that are interested in working with developers, but again, they don't network as much. And because they don't have a high street presence, it's very difficult to build that relationship with those people unless they're actively out networking. Um, they also have land and new homes teams. So it might be even more difficult that if you're looking to do some sort of level of negotiation. Um, the most important one for you in terms of building a sustainable relationship with as a property developer is going to be your independence. These ones here. Now, these are all taken from these logos here from my local market. So I actually used to work at Poynton's and Hawkins were the main one in Nuneaton, and Mark Webster were also an estate agency that covered South Staffordshire and North Warwickshire. These are the kinds of estate agencies that you want to be targeting, and we'll get into why in just a second. So the first way to spot an independent estate agency is probably the bet is your core focus at the moment, because this is what's going to save you wasting all that time going into an estate agency, getting a bit of a standoff and then not getting the sort of reaction, or maybe them just taking your details and then you probably not getting a call back unless they're trying to sell you a mortgage appointment or solicitors or all the other stakeholders that they have, the affiliates that they have to sell you. Independents typically have 1 to 10 branches. So the uh, estate agency branches will all be based pretty much in the same geographical region. They will all be family owned. So you will be able to uh, recognize by the name of the estate agency that the person who owns it is probably still the name on the door. Everyone that works for an independent estate agent, in my experience, is based very, very locally. So when you walk into that estate agency branch, the majority of those people will live in the same town that they sell properties in. So they have an enormous invested interest in the local market. The branding will be dated. Now, this is not for all estate agents, but typically with independents, they don't have the vast resources of a marketing department that, say, a large corporate or hybrid estate agency will. So when you get the leaflet through and it's still got, Windows 98 clip art on it, that's your telltale sign that they're an independent estate agency. Even if you're getting letters from them and the branding looks a bit blurred, a bit pixelated, these are all telltale signs that they could be an independent estate agency. Independents will also sponsor local community projects. So think about your local football teams, your local sporting events, maybe even the Christmas lights switch on. They're heavily invested in the local community, and they're normally the first ones to put the resources in to pay for those events or pay for those sponsorship opportunities because they have a quicker decision making power than, say, the larger corporates. Most independent agents won't actually have a mortgage advisor based on site full time. They will call in a mortgage advisor who will be independent, that will have their own business. They may work from the office 2 to 3 days a week, but they won't be based there full time because there won't be a sufficient amount of business for that person to be on site the entire time. They will also not be employed by the estate agency. So that's another telltale sign that they are independent. Now, if you're looking to list your property with an estate agent, there's a vast difference between a corporate and an independent, and that's contract lengths. So if you list your property, all estate agents will ask for an exclusivity period. This is a period that you can't list your property with any other agent. They will also say that if any buyers are introduced to that property, that estate agent can claim those buyers, and the marketing that they've done as a direct result of that buyer being introduced to your property. Now, typically, corporate estate agents, their contract lengths are about 24 weeks, whereas independents are a lot more flexible. Theirs are only 12 to 16 weeks. So if you see that on the contract, you'll know that they're an independent agent, unless the corporate has been negotiated down on their contract lengths. Now, the reason that you want to target these guys is because they have access to decision makers. Now, we've already mentioned that the name is on the door of the woman or the bloke that owns that estate agency. They will normally have a much more hands-on role. Senior management will be based either in the branch or they'll be based locally so that they can actually have much more boots on the ground approach to what goes on in that estate agency. It won't be managed from a headquarters or a head office somewhere else in the country. You're more likely to the people working in an independent estate agency are more likely to have their own portfolio. They will have an invested interested in the local market, and if they either own the estate agency or they work there on a senior basis, they will have invested into buying properties in the area. So they're landlords, they're property investors. They know what's going on. So it's really nice way to build up rapport with them, especially if they can identify with some of the strategies that you're trying to do. Now, as they're based in the area, they will have a higher reputational stake. Um, you've heard the saying that you don't want to shit on your own doorstep. So that's quite a, although it's quite a crude saying, it means that when you're dealing with estate agents that are based in the area that are independent, they are going to be a lot more conscious of how their reputation is affected by the interactions that they have with either buyers or sellers. Which gives you a little bit of trust. Larger corporates obviously have huge PR machines, and if something goes wrong, they have a huge complaints process that they can go through, whereas independents don't necessarily have those resources. They'll be registered with the property ombudsman and all the governing bodies, but it's solely down to them if a complaint comes in and they've got the paperwork to do. They'll also have less marketing spend, which means that they need to be more flexible on how they bring properties to market. They will have financial motivations. They won't obviously be generating the same levels of income as the corporate agents. So they will need to be more flexible on how they're buying and selling properties and the types of properties that they're bringing to market. They can't suddenly hand it over to another department because they have the expertise to do it, which means that there's also more crossover between departments. Lettings and sales work more closely together because there could be opportunities in the lettings team that the sales need to hit their sales targets. And as we've discussed with the contract lengths, that there are more flexible terms. Now, this was something that someone said to me very, very early on in my career, and it stayed with me. I actually heard a chap speaking on the Property Investor Networks circuit who said this again. Good estate agents don't list houses; they build relationships. I mentioned earlier that when you go into a living room, the first thing that you probably say is that we'll stick you on Rightmove, we'll stick you on Zoopla, we'll stick you on Prime Location. Problem is, if they're having three other valuations that day, that's exactly the same thing that the other estate agents are going to say to them. The ones that spend the time to actually get to know the properties that are coming to market, the vendors, build relationships with them, understand why it is that that property needs to be sold. Um, they're the ones that actually do better in estate agency. The people that develop those skills to be able to interact with other people. Um, they generally get to understand what it is that the pain points of the customers, and that information is vital. I think someone mentioned earlier about Pauline mentioned property filter, which is a fantastic tool. The only thing that's probably missing from prop tech platforms is the story behind why those properties have come to market, and you don't necessarily get to hear those experiences. Certainly, if you're able to build a relationship with an estate agent who then introduces you to potential sellers or potential properties coming to market, you'll need to exercise that same skill. And I'm sure you do it every single day to try and bring those properties to you and bring them into your pipeline. So I wanted to talk about deals because it's really important you understand what it's like working in an estate agency office with the different types of deals that come available. Now, there are two categories. The first one, everyone does them, and then barely anyone does. And the deals that you want to go after are the ones that barely anyone does. And I'll explain why. Part exchanges, repossessions. If you're flicking through Rightmove and it's got obvious cosmetic improvement and it's a probate, those properties are normally easy to spot online. We'll play a little game actually. So the top one, top picture on the right hand side, that is obviously a repossession with the windows boarded up. I'd love you guys to put in the chat if you think the bottom picture is a repossession, yes or no. And if you think yes, give me your reasons why. We'll just give you a couple of seconds. Fran says no. Anyone else? Yeah, bang on. So Andy and Jermaine got it. Yeah. The reason you know that that's a repossession is because the toilet is taped down. Now, when these repossessions come to market, the bank specifically tell the estate agent they are not allowed to call it a repossession. It is sale by corporate owner. That's the terminology that they have to use. But if you're eagle-eyed, and as a lot of you have identified, you'll notice, and you might not be able to see it in this picture, there's also tape on the taps in both the bath and the sink. The reason is that when the bank gains possession of that property, they have to condemn all the services. So including the boiler, all the plumbing, they have to put tape on it to say that it's condemned. And you have to go in as an estate agent once a week to check that that tape is still there. You're not allowed to remove it. Now, this picture I actually found online this last week, and it was from an estate agency that I used to work at, and it made me laugh because you're not actually, the bank doesn't like you using pictures with the taping because it actually tells people that it's a repossession. Now, the reason that you should avoid repossessions, it's up to you whether you go for them. A lot of deals can be found, is because uh, repossessions, if you've ever come into contact with them, have to stay on the market until the property is exchanged. Not till an offer's agreed, till it's exchanged. So what can happen is you can put an offer in on that property, and then someone else can come along and they can basically offer more than you, and the bank will switch buyers. You could have already paid out for a survey, you could have paid out for solicitors, and they'll just swap. The problem is if you're the buyer that's offered the higher offer, you could be walking into a down valuation. So you pay out for a survey and it gets rejected because the amount that you've offered is too high. So that property will basically sit on the market until a cash buyer comes along. And these properties are purposely down valued. So they're below market value. So it's really enticing to buy them. And the reason is because they want to basically get the most for the property. So the lower that they value it, the more viewings they get, the more offers they get, and the more money the bank recovers. And that could be quite a precarious position that you could be walking into. Now, as an estate agent, we would do open days on these types of properties because we knew that if we just started booking in viewings here, there, and everywhere, the amount of viewings that we were going to get on it, it would meant that we would probably be filling up our petrol tanks once a day with the amount of viewings that we'd be doing on that. So it was easier just to book them in for open days where we could show around 20 to 25 investors, property developers at a time. Repossessions for me, I would personally stay away from them. And just to give you a bit more insight, we previously mentioned corporates. Now, this one here, LSL, they don't just own estate agencies. They also have one of the biggest asset management companies in the UK, and most of the repossessions come through LSL. So when you're an estate agent and someone phones you up to list a repossession, it will be LSL. And of course, LSL own Your Move and they own Reed's Rains. Now, if LSL, then the bank specifies they have to list it with two agents at the same time. They will you typically either list it with Your Move or Reed's Rains, and then they will list it with an independent estate agent so that the corporate estate agents don't take that revenue. So they will pick Your Move or Reed's Rains, and then they will list it with one of these. Um, and that's just something to bear in mind. Uh, Probates as well. Probates, there can be some great opportunities found through probate, but in my experience, if they look tired and they immediately need cosmetic improvement, you will find a lot of investors jumping in on those properties. I would also say as well that typically when you're dealing with a family dynamic and there's more than one sibling that's responsible as an executor on that estate, it can get quite messy once you get the into the sales process because there will always be one more relative that wants more money than the rest of them. And then an internal battle goes on and they end up having to pull off the property. I would also say if you're going for probate properties, you need to make sure that the estate agent knows that the probate has been released before that property comes to market because they can technically list that property without the probate being released, and that will save you a lot of heartache down the run. So what barely anyone does is they build a relationship with the estate agent before it reaches the market, so that the estate agent will actually phone them when they think they've got a good deal that suits their requirements. Um, Barely anyone speaks to an estate agent or a letting agent about landlords that are exiting their portfolio. Obviously, with the renters reform bill coming in, there are a massive amount of properties that are about to hit the market. I believe it's something like 82,000 properties are about to hit the market based on the renters reform bill. So, building up a good relationship with an estate agent to find out which ones are going to hit the market is absolutely essential. Survey down valuations or structural issues. This is something that can come up at least once a month for a local high street branch where the property has gone to survey and they've actually found some cracks by the surveyor, or they've sold the property for more than they think it's worth. At that point, if the estate agent hasn't been able to speak to the buyer, the sale will fall through because relationships break down and it's too much work for the buyer to take on. That could be an ideal situation for you to step in before it goes back out onto the open market. And of course, something you won't find out on property platforms is divorces and separations. Now, this is a really important one because estate agents will find this out straight away. Um, Statistically, the most divorces and separations happen in January, and that is the time when a lot of people split up because they spend all Christmas with each other, end up hating each other, and then estate agents around this time of year start getting calls for properties coming to the market. Um, it is a misconception that most divorces want a high price for the property. That typically doesn't happen in most cases. Actually, both parties want to exit the relationship and exit the property as quickly as they can so that they don't have to be under the same roof. They can free up some capital. So if you've got a good relationship with an estate agent, they will be able to give you some sort of information as to what sort of properties those would be. And you can also find out which properties are going off to auction. If a property is not selling, a lot of estate agents now are getting referral fees for sending them to auction houses. Wouldn't it be great if you could find out which properties are going to auction before they actually do? Now, most people go into estate agencies and they immediately start talking to the first row of people within the estate agency. But there are different types of roles within the estate agency that will let you know whether these kinds of deals are available to you. If it's the person that owns the estate agent, depending on how big it is, depending on how many branches they've got, the chances are they will probably be in Portugal playing golf. So they won't be customer facing. Likewise, if you're looking to speak to the sales negotiator who's sat on the front desk, the first one that you walk into, the first person sat at the front is typically the sales negotiator. They are the lowest paid, the hardest worked, and they have the highest staff turnover. They also have the least amount of training. So when you're going in as a professional client talking to them about developments and property strategies, they are the least likely to understand what you're talking about. The most important person that you want to approach is the branch manager. The branch manager, depending on the size, will also be the lister and the valuer. They will know everything that's going on within that estate agency. And if you can build a relationship with them, they will consistently build your pipeline. They will call you regularly. They may even ask the sales negotiators to call you on a regular basis. This actually happened to me when I went to my first Coventry pin. The pin host was a guy called Sebastian Burrow, a French guy. I hope he doesn't mind me saying his name. He'd actually built a relationship with our branch manager, Ben, in Bedworth, in the office we were in. And Sebastian kept us for the next 2 to 3 years before he moved back to France with a consistent flow of properties because we'd spent the time to build a relationship with him. He invited me along to his first pin meeting, and that's how I got involved in property networking. That was all down to the relationship that Ben had built with Sebastian, and Ben, as a branch manager, also owned his own portfolio, so he could speak to Sebastian in a language that he understood, not French, in property. So you've all walked into this kind of environment. That looks like every single estate agency office that I've ever worked in. And that guy sat at the front was me with a suit that didn't fit him properly and slick back hair, waiting for someone to come in, checking Facebook every 5 minutes. Um, that is possibly not the person you want to speak to. But if you do get faced with that person, there are certain questions that you need to have in the back of your mind to create the ultimate first impression. First of all, who are you? What it is you do, where you're from, uh, what it is that you are looking to achieve. Now, it's really important that you are direct with the estate agency. And when you first walk in, it's never love at first sight. They might smile at you, but it might feel a bit standoffish. And the reason for that is because typically, in my experience, about 4 people a day would walk in off the high street to sell us something, to try and sell us anything, whether it was a prop tech platform, whether it was a charity fundraiser, you name it. There was someone walking in to try and sell us something. Most buyers and sellers will actually phone up the estate agency unless they've got a complaint, then they'll go down to the estate agency. You also need to bear in mind that people walking in off the street. There was a scam that was going around, and I still hear about this to this day, where supposed charity workers would walk in that were working for a deaf charity or a blind charity. They would hold out a sign to ask for donations from the estate agent, and then they would slip their mobile phone, which was off on the desk, and they would slip it off the desk into their pocket while they were holding up this sign. So estate agents naturally are cautious when you walk into their estate agency office. It's not because they're rude, it's just because that's the way that they've been trained. So confidently telling them who you are and what it is you do is the best thing. You also need to give a specific ask. What is it you need from that estate agent? What kind of properties is it you're after? What are your specific requirements? If you can go in with a document showing those specific requirements or even case studies of the specific projects you've worked on before, that is really, really going to help because it allows the estate agent to visualize what you're after. Um, what is it that you can give back? Because estate agents, they're there to make money. What value are you looking to receive back? So hopefully from this presentation, you've figured out that estate agents want properties to sell or they want properties to let. So if you're able to include that in your negotiation, and it's one of the first things that you mention to them, the estate agent's eyes will light up and they'll be a lot more accommodating to work with you. What is going to make you stand out? Now, I've already mentioned that multiple people come in every single day into the high street branch, some of them good, some of them bad, and some of them there to scam them. What is going to make you stand out from the rest of them? Is there something that you can do or something specific that you can give the estate agent that's going to allow them to remember you? And I'm going to share some tips in just a second. And is it a quiet time? If you go in on a Saturday, the likelihood is that they are going to be hungover. Uh, I'm sorry, I'm just talking from personal experience. Saturday, I was always hungover, and I worked till 2 o'clock. And if someone walked in at 1 o'clock, I couldn't care less because I was desperate to leave the office. So going in on a Saturday is not a good time. Going in on a Monday morning is not a good time. The peak times to go into estate agency offices are on a Tuesday just after lunch or a Thursday just after lunch. That's going to be the most receptive time to get a conversation flowing with an estate agent. And the amount of people, property investors, developers that walk into an estate agency and they're never coming back. They'll walk in once, they'll drop off their requirements for a property, and then they'll leave and you'll never see them again. Have you made them aware that you're coming back, that you're going to follow up with them, that you'll come back in the next 2 weeks to come and visit them to see how they're getting on? An estate agent will know you're serious if you're prepared to come back down to the estate agency branch. And for the love of God, this is just a big, big tip. Please don't tap the glass. Estate agents feel like they're living in a glass bowl consistently. And if you tap the glass in the window of a property that you see, uh, you will immediately get a reaction from the estate agent. So it's not the best way to break the ice. If you really want to build rapport with an estate agent, watch someone tap the glass outside an estate agency office and just rugby tackle for them. If you rugby tackle that person tapping the glass, the estate agent will probably put you on their shoulders and bring you into the office and tell you what properties they're listing that month. So please do give that a try. First impressions count, and Jermaine has already been in there and beat me to it. Um, if you are looking to build a long-term sustainable relationship with the estate agent and you know that your gatekeeper is at the front, the sales negotiators, and the person that you want to speak to is the branch manager sat at the back of the office, then you need to occupy the sales negotiator. So bringing in a coffee, and I put ice lollies there. A developer once came into my estate agency branch. It was 25 degrees. My The owner of the estate agency was so tight he never wanted to get the aircon fixed. So we were all boiling in our three-piece suits, and a developer walked in, and they'd been to Iceland 20 minutes before, filled an entire bag with ice lollies, and came round and gave us one. And I still think about that developer to this day. So if you want to create an incredible first impression and allow them to remember you, bring in sweets, donuts, like Jermaine says, um, offer to buy them a coffee, ice lollies. And if it's a special occasion, like it's coming up to Christmas or it's coming up to Easter or whatever it is, drop in and drop off a crate of beers or a bottle of wine. I guarantee you that they will be calling you back within the next week or so. But the most important one that you want to build that relationship is with the branch manager. And estate agents are business people. They take their business very, very seriously. They are stuck in that glass bowl consistently throughout the day. Offer to take them off site for a treat. So whether that's down to Weatherspoons for a pint or to Costa for a Costa coffee, sit down and have a professional meeting with them, arrange it at a time that's suitable for them when they're more quiet, and then actually have that discussion. And you know how it is when you're meeting new people, when you're networking. Don't go in straight with the sell. Get to learn about their career, how they started off in a state agency, and I guarantee you the deal pipeline will be coming through thick and fast. So, uh, the deal is done in the follow-up always. So, I would always recommend that if you've gone in to see your estate agent, you've identified the independents in your area, please, please, please make sure that you go back within the next fortnight because otherwise they will forget about you and they will add you to the long list of developers that have turned up once and they've never seen again. If they know that you're going to consistently come back, they will start calling you more often. The more you see them, the more they'll do deals with you and the more that they'll share opportunities with you. Before we finish this and I go to your questions, I just need to let you know that next week we have the Managing Director of Development Finance for Shawbrook joining us to talk about funding £2 billion worth of property, overcoming hurdles with Shawbrook. He's also going to talk about why it's so difficult to be a property developer. So if you want to register for that one, you can register now in the UK Homes Network app. So please do make sure you come and see us Monday night. Um, if you want to drop your questions in the chat, we'll get onto them in just a second. We did also have a question come in from one of our network members, so I'm going to try and dig that out in just a second. So, yeah, thank you very much, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Let's see what questions we've got. Are there common mistakes people make when trying to build relationships with estate agents that we should avoid? Hi Donna. Yes. The biggest one is the amount of propositions, financial propositions that developers offer estate agents. They say that if you buy this property, if they send you a deal, and that developer ends up buying the property, they will give a cash incentive to that estate agent, not to the estate agency, to that estate agent. Gifts are illegal. So gifting an estate agent for a property transaction is illegal. So don't ever offer them a financial incentive for selling you a property. And the reason it's illegal is because the estate agent is only allowed to make their fee from the seller, from one person. If it was like sort of an American system where you had a one representing the buyer and one representing the seller, they would still only be able to earn their fee from the person, from one person. So if you offer them a gift as a cash reward for securing that transaction, they are immediately going to question your reputation, your trust levels. So you should always the incentive should be for them to list that property or for them to bring that property onto the market or to let that property once you've done the work to it, not to financially reward them in the sum of cash for actually selling you that property in the first place. That would be the first big no-no that I would say. But certainly the biggest problem that I see with developers working with estate agents is that they never come back. They never follow up. So if you're consistently checking in with the estate agent, trying to build that relationship, they will start to they will start to recognize your face. They will be more open. And they will always tell you that we don't have any opportunities on the first time that you see them. But the more times you come back, the harder they will work to find you something because they'll know that you're not going away and that you are serious. Thanks, Kumi. That's really lovely feedback. Thank you so much. Okay, should you stay with a couple of agents or build contact with all your local ones? Now, this is a fantastic question, Fran. What I would say is that when you first meet an estate agent, I would say that you're looking to build an exclusive relationship with that estate agent. But as they well know, because they run an estate agency, and as you should know because you run a business, that you have to disclose to them or to build a nice relationship with them. Say, look, I am looking to build a relationship with an exclusive relationship with an estate agent. but I'm going round all the estate agencies to see what kind of relationship that I can build. Now, if you've done your research and you know the local independents, you'll know who their nearest competitor is, and just say, I'm going to go round to Hawkins. I'm going to go and see Roy in a minute at Hawkins. What do you think of them? Now, estate agents are fiercely competitive by nature. So if they know that you're going to go round and have a conversation with them, they may try and sort of work a little bit harder to find you a deal in their black book of deals. So yeah, I, I would always work with as many estate agents as you can, but you want to make that estate agent feel like it's exclusive. And of course, if you are bringing a property to market, then you don't want to promise it to every estate agent in the town because otherwise they're going to shut down and they're not going to want to keep that deal pipeline open with you. So yeah, you just need to be careful on that front. But certainly, I'd be transparent about the fact that you are going to go speak to other estate agents, but you're desperate to build a proper relationship with just the one. Um, John, Chris, if you're new to that agency, they will have a black book already. How do you break into that? Okay, John, I'm going to say something that probably contradicts my earlier point, but there is no such thing as a black book in an estate agency. They have a database of buyers. The black book is a mental black book. I will remember the developers that I like working with. It's very different for land agents. Land agents typically will have 10 to 15 developers that they will work with if they're doing ground up developments, and they will try and keep a pipeline churning over with them. It's very difficult to work with other land agents if they've got this sort of core of 10 to 15 because they've got to consistently keep them uh, supplied with new sites. But when you're dealing with your average high street estate agent, they don't typically have a physical black book. It's a mental black book. They will have a list of all the buyers that have registered, all the sellers that have registered through their CRM system. But the ones that stand out are the ones that have made an impression. The black book is in the brain. And when they look through that list, they want to remember your name and want to remember what it is that you offer. And it's like touch points. The more you speak to them, the more contact you have with them, the more likely that they're going to think of you when they're going out to bring a property onto the market. And that is the that is what you're trying to achieve with this. It's not necessarily getting your name specifically written down. It's just them remembering you, John. Is it a good idea if it works, putting a property you have refurbed, for example, back on the market with the same agent? Yeah, good idea if it works, putting a property you have. Yes, absolutely, Donna. Um, so if that estate agent has sold that property to you in the first place, and then they come back out and put it, and then you decide to put it back on the market with them, let them know that this is not just a one-off, that this is a real thing. They keep deals coming your way. You will consistently keep putting it back on the market with them, subject to their service being good, of course, and then managing the sale properly. But yeah, absolutely. You want to be making sure that they know that that's your end of the bargain. You're satisfying them with putting that property back on the market. And if they know it's coming direct to you, there's been a lot of developers that I've worked with in the past, and they've not they've come out and bought a property with me, and then they've promised me that they would put it back on the market with me, and then they go somewhere else without even speaking to me. That actually happened on my first episode of Homes Under the Hammer. So I did a house in Nuneaton, and I waited for about half an hour after filming to go and speak to the guy who owned the property, and spent a lot of time with him and said, "Look, you know, when are you putting it back on the market? And can we have it?" And the guy said, "Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. We'll get you out for a valuation." Unfortunately, he went with the market leader and our nearest competitor, and I never got a call out for the valuation, which is fine. I'm not bitter about it. But if I had known that he would have put it on the market with us, I would have made sure that he had even more properties to keep him going. Yeah, I hope I answered your question correctly, Donna. Right, I'm just going to go to this question from one of our network members because Myra is going to be watching the recording tomorrow. She assured me. So if I don't answer this question, if you've got any more questions, I'm loving them coming in, guys. So please do keep coming in. And if I've missed any questions, please do let me know. I'm happy to keep going as long as you guys are. So, Myra put a really cool question this afternoon. What is the best way to put a creative deal forward to an estate agent where it is your first time viewing a property with them? So, not when it's your first time viewing a property with them, so not had time to build rapport. I would like to propose a JV with the vendor who has had bad luck with the probate property. The property is in a total state of disrepair and needs a full refurb, including roof. Once refurbed, I would share 50% of the profit with the vendor. Now, this is a really, really important question because basically what Myra's asking here is she wants to do a JV, maybe even a shared lease option with the vendor. And obviously, it's on the market currently with an estate agent. The whole idea of if you go direct to a vendor and almost cut the estate agent out with the deal, and that happens quite a lot because there may be a case of that you're in a viewing and the estate agent isn't there. Maybe the vendor has decided to do their own viewings. If you try and cut a deal with the vendor and the estate agent doesn't know about it, you are going to ruin any further relationship with them. Two reasons. The first one is that you are cutting the estate agent out of the deal. But second of all, you're putting the vendor in a very difficult position, either because the vendor doesn't know what you're talking about or potentially needs to be educated about it. But second of all, because there will be an exclusivity agreement, if the vendor decides to try and cut the estate agent out completely, they will still be liable for the estate agency fees. So it can create a lot of distrust with the estate agent. What I would recommend is that not going to the vendor direct. If you've got any sort of creative finance strategies, you need to speak to the estate agent. That's why the branch manager is so, so important because the branch manager probably will have a couple of buy to lets themselves or will have a portfolio. Speaking to them first, to the person that understands it, can communicate that effectively to the vendor on your behalf, or you can go and speak to the vendor accompanied by the estate agent, and together you can have that conversation. Now, it is high risk. The vendor may decide not to, or the estate agent might not feel that that's a good idea, but you won't lose the trust of the estate agent then. And you've definitely got to make sure that the estate agent understands the creative strategy that you're trying to deal with. If they don't understand the creative strategy, it's not going to be relayed properly to the vendor, and it's going to be quite difficult. If you don't want to build a relationship with that estate agent, then it's entirely up to you whether you want to go direct. I would probably wait until the property comes off the market. Jermaine has put, what would you recommend for approaching agent when doing rent to serviced accommodation business model, in particularly for the agents who also offer full property management services? Um, yeah, I mean it's a case of that if you first of all you need to speak to the lettings manager, the lettings branch manager, the person that's in charge of that portfolio, and if the takes you back to that original slide, which is what value can you give to that letting agency? If they know that you are prepared to give the property management to them, they are going to be a lot more willing to put deals to you. Um, but I have noticed from some of my friends in um, lettings that the amount of calls that they get on the rent to rent side is it's just gone through the roof. So you are better off going in and speaking to um, the lettings team and you're going to have the same problem because the lettings negotiators and the maintenance team all sit on the front desks, and the lettings manager is normally sat at the back. And you need to build a relationship with the lettings manager who's properly in charge of that portfolio to give you access to the people that are that's going to be able to call those shots for you. Because they've ultimately got to introduce you to the landlords that are going to be willing to do that. So yeah, that's what I would advise. If you're just going to phone up and email, you're not going to get a response. Certainly, if you're going to put through a right move lead based on a property that you've seen, it all comes down to the relationship that you're looking to build. Um, Lettings is a lot more difficult because, and they are a lot more standoffish because you can imagine the drama and the trauma that they have to deal with tenants coming into their office. So yeah, I'd definitely try and pick off-peak times to go in and talk to them. And I would even have a portfolio pack. Propertybranding.co.uk or .com. What's his name? Oliver James, I think who owns that. He does investor packs. Get yourself an investor pack and go in and talk to them about it. Um, and the most important thing is what are they going to get out of that relationship? How do you rebuild? Amazing, Fran. Thank you. And we can't wait to have you at our events this year. So excited. So yeah, property assistant, I know has been getting a lot of love in the chat. They will be exhibiting at our events this year, so please do make sure you get a ticket for that. We'd love to see you there. What I'll do is I'll just quickly put the details back up for Birmingham, and then we'll get on to that next question that's just come in. How do you rebuild the relationship again if they've failed in the past, please? Um, Good, Mike, could you just give me a little bit more detail on that? Why have they failed? Is it a sales fallen through? Is it bad customer service? And why is it you're looking to work with them again? Um, that would really, really help. If it was a misunderstanding between you both, I'd love to know. But I think generally, if you go down and have a chat with them and offer them a coffee or whatever, that would be the best way. But I can't be more specific on that. If you would be willing to share with me a few more details, I might be able to help. I'm just checking I haven't missed any questions. I've absolutely loved tonight, guys. Thank you so much for all the engagement. Just isn't keeping going ahead. Oh, right. Okay. So maybe the contact's not been good from their perspective. Um, I would say that they might not be the estate agent that you want to work with in that case. If they're not prepared, if you keep making the effort consistently and they're consistently not prepared to put the effort in on their side, it may mean that they are not the person that you want to build a partnership with. So there's two ways you can go about that. Maybe your contact is wrong within that estate agency. So you could try trying to build a relationship with someone else. That would be great because not only would it make the other person jealous and they're extremely competitive, it could um, it could mean that they actually start bringing you more deals. Um, but yeah, it means you don't have to completely walk away from that estate agency. But if it's a cultural problem within that estate agent, then I would go to their nearest competitor and make sure that the nearest competitor isn't independent. But yeah, I would definitely try that tact. If it doesn't work with the agent that you're dealing with, speak to someone else in the office, try again with building that relationship. And if that doesn't work, go to basically next door on the high street and see if that can help. Explain your pain points, explain your situation to the new estate agent and why it's not worked out before. And your new estate agent, whether that's internally or externally, be a lot more conscious of that. Yes, Jermaine, I'm going to put the slides out tonight. So if you're in UK Homes Network, you'll be able to see that. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I was a bit nervous about tonight, and yeah, I'm so glad you guys have got stuck in. So I think we've been on an hour and 24 minutes. Uh, Bless you guys. You're going to need to lie down after this. Um, Thank you so much for joining. Tomorrow we're back with a construction clinic. So tomorrow is a construction clinic with Tony Walker. If you've got any build questions, whether it's a refurb you're doing or whether you've got a you want better pricing up of a job that you're doing at the moment. Sorry, I'm running out of things to say. Tony is there on the construction clinic. We're going to live stream it directly into UK Homes Network. If you need any help with your build or your refurb, come with your questions tomorrow and Tony will answer them live. It's a totally interactive session. There's no presentations on that one, so you can jump straight in with your questions and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much, guys. Have a lovely evening and I will catch you all soon. Please do make sure you post in UK Homes Network, and hopefully, I will see you at our live event at the end of this month. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.